The original Sony Playstation, one of my favorite game consoles of all time, has an awesome selection of games to pick from, and in today's video I want to count down the top 10 best PS1 games. The only rule I have is that I won't be including multiple games from the same franchise, and if you do have a different opinion, which is likely so, let me know your favorites in the comments, but without further ado, hello guys, this is Hepodix and let us begin. At number 10 spot, we have probably the most iconic fighting game for the PS1, known as Tekken 3, developed by Namco. The third entry in the series has a lot to cover, such as the classic arcade mode, versus with a straight 1 vs 1 or team battle, beach ball for the laughs, and force mode, which is an interesting beat 'em up minigame mixed with Tekken mechanics. But what makes Tekken 3 also really memorable is the great cast of characters, my favorites being Eddie, Law, Lei, and True Ogre. So the roster has a great variety overall, and the different moves aren't impossible to execute, although it requires some practice to get the flow going. All things considered, Tekken 3 is still one of the best in the franchise and super nostalgic to me personally, like all of the other games in this list. And did I almost forgot that this game hosts one of the best FMVs ever, featuring Gon's adventures. Next at number 9 spot, we have Capcom's Mega Man 8, a game that isn't the most known in the series by a long shot, but still quite enjoyable. I also really like the Mega Man Legends 1 and 2, and the spin-off game The Misadventures of Tron-Bonne, which takes a 3D turn in the series, but I'll have only one game per franchise for this list, and Mega Man 8 is my favorite from the catalog. So Mega Man 8 follows the basic formula of going through the stages, fight a boss at the end, obtain their weapon and proceed to the next one. It also features the Bolt system, where you can buy new upgrades for Mega Man, which is a nice addition. The overall design and the sprite-based look of the game is really solid as well. The only negative I can say about this game is its infamous voice acting that is so bad I actually find it rather funny, but still, Mega Man 8 is still a great sequel to the series, no doubt.
I don't know where this energy came from, but I cannot let it fall into Dr. Wowie's hands.
Whoa.
Taking a look at the number 8 spot, we have a game that I really wished that had more sequels in its catalog, as I'm talking about Whoopee Camp's Tombi 2, or Tomba 2 in Japan and North America, but as a European I am used to calling it Tombi. It's a 2.5D platform adventure game mixed with RPG elements as you proceed to various areas or do quests, or events as they're called, to get adventure points, and get new power-ups and weapons along the way. You're on a quest to defeat 6 evil pigs, as they have taken control of the various areas you explore during your adventure. Tombi 2 was even positively received by critics and fans alike, but due to bad sales the company disbanded and therefore no more games were ever made. But seriously, if you ever get a chance to play this game, give it a shot because it is a lot of fun. Moving to the 7th spot, we have a Street Fighter game that is for some reason very unknown to the public, as I'm talking about Street Fighter EX2+. It's your typical Street Fighter game on surface, but since it was developed by Arica, it has a cool unique set of characters alongside the famous Capcom roster. Street Fighter EX2+ also features modes like Arcade, Versus, bonus games like Destroying All the Barrels and Practice, where you can really hone your skills by doing various combo tasks for each character. I just found the combo system really satisfying, as you can execute so many cool combos together, and the unique Arica characters really spiced things up. Especially this guy, Garuda, was so good, yet really fun to play if you wanted to humiliate someone. But yeah, give this game a shot if you're a fan of the series.
Hey, Justin!
Next at the number 6 spot, we have a JRPG that was also somewhat unknown in the PS1 era, known as Grandia. This game is quite the journey as the story centers around Justin, who ultimately discovers beyond an insurmountable wall known as the End of the World and takes on the antagonist General Baal and his empire known as the Gar Lily forces, who are plotting sinister actions behind the scenes. Grandia is a great game if you enjoy a nice storyline, a fun set of characters, great battle mechanics, good music, and the way your party gets new abilities and quirks when obtaining new levels is just really fun. It's hard to recommend this title if the series isn't something you grew up with, but for all the RPG fans out there, it's still a solid title, yet somewhat underrated, but a great experience nonetheless.
Here you go! Ha!
No problem.
At the 5th spot, we have the original Rayman, developed by Ubisoft, which started this legendary franchise we know and love today. The reason I prefer this over the sequel, Rayman 2, is the beautiful art style presented in each world, and the solid 2D platforming the game offers, and Rayman 2 got better version for the PS2 known as Rayman Revolution, which I regard as the definitive edition of that game. Rayman 1 on the other hand is a masterclass in the side-scrolling platformer games, hosting great level designs, very colorful art style, and the overall gameplay and difficulty is really spot on. As you travel the various levels, Rayman gains new power-ups, such as the helicopter move that helps him reach greater distances. Your ultimate goal is to rescue all the Electoons scattered around the levels and take on the game's antagonist Mr. Dark. So it's a really great game, and also I'm really glad that Rayman's fan community created this game called Rayman Redemption in 2020, because it has the same base game of Rayman 1, but with so much more content added, which I can highly recommend as well if you're a fan of the franchise.
You're a dragon?
You got a problem with that, pussycat?
Taking a look at the 4th spot, we have the Insomniac Games' second entry in the Spyro series, known as Spyro 2 Gateway to Glimmer in Europe and Australia, and Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage in North America. I really enjoyed the first and third Spyro games too, but the second entry stands out for me the most. Spyro 2 is a collectathon 3D platformer game where you travel to different worlds collecting gems, talismans and orbs to unlock new areas and proceed thereon. It also hosts a lot of memorable characters such as Hunter, Moneybags and Ripto, which just adds to the overall goodness. The soundtrack also amps up the game's mood, and the overall presentation of the game, such as Spyro's movement, techniques and many other things, makes it a wonderful playthrough. The only thing I kind of despise is the Fracture Hills level, when you have to listen to this several times. Oh, thanks pal. And the infamous Alchemist side quest where you have to escort this fella as he takes the worst route possible to maximize the annoyance of this section.
Could you kindly offer me an escort?
No.
Great!
Oh, please. All in all, Spyro 2 is still a great game and more than deserves a spot in my list.
Thank you, Spyro. Now I can put my friend back together.
For the 3rd spot, we have very likely the most known JRPG on the original PlayStation, known as Squaresoft's Final Fantasy VII. It was one of the reasons the PS1 was so successful back then, and for a great reason. It has a great storyline, very in-depth battle mechanics, an amazing soundtrack, and pretty much anything you'd want from a great game in the RPG genre. It's so popular that it got its remake version done in 2020, although this was an action RPG take on the game and only covers the first part of the original game, known as the Midgar section. Final Fantasy VII is a game that has really been covered in so many videos and media outlets by this point, so I'll just make my point here to say that it's really a must-play game for all the RPG fans, and in my honest opinion, does not disappoint in any regard thanks to its great execution overall. At number 2 spot, let's talk about Naughty Dog's Crash Team Racing or CTR, one of the best kart racing games of all time. This game was so successful that it even got eventually a remaster known as CTR Nitro Field for newer platforms. And yes, the original Crash trilogy are also really fun games, but the kart racer spin-off brought more enjoyment to me in the long run. So the game's idea is to win a lot of races across multiple levels, as the adventure mode connects these levels together in a neat way, which reminds me of games like Diddy Kong Racing. But the main selling point for myself are two things: the satisfying track and driving mechanics as well as the multiplayer. It's just super fun to drive the various tracks, especially when you get the hang of your character, and the option to do this with up to 4 players locally is a cherry on top of this game. For all the kart racer fans out there, CTR is a must-play entry in the series. Taking the first spot in my best PS1 games list, we have another JRPG that isn't the most known as some other titles here, but the overall nostalgia and memories associated with this game are so gargantuan that I just cannot overlook this game. I am talking about Capcom's Breath of Fire 3 that I also mentioned in my top 10 most underrated games video. Breath of Fire 3 is a masterpiece in the world of RPG games where you take the journey with Ryu, who is one of the few remaining people of the Brood race. He wants to find out the purpose for his existence in the world, with a lot of story twists and great overall presentation given as the story unfolds. BoF 3 also has a great battle system, soundtrack, a memorable cast of characters, and the sprite-based graphics have really aged well, as I can argue that it still looks pretty good today. There was also a sequel known as Breath of Fire 4 released for the PS1, which is a good game too, but its overall presentation and the mix of 3D models and sprites didn't have as big of an impact to me compared to the third entry. But seriously, if you're a fan of the old school sprite-based RPGs like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI, you're really missing out if you haven't played Breath of Fire 3, as I can more than highly recommend this game to you. Alright, so that was my take on the top 10 best PS1 games list. If you enjoyed this video, show some love by giving it a thumbs up, as it helps with the YouTube algorithm, comment, and consider to subscribe for more great gaming related videos such as top 10s in the future. That's it folks, thanks a lot for watching, my name is Hepodix and have a nice day. Or you can just call me Hepo, that's fine too.